I've just prepared this interview today just to talk about sort of like what you've been up to in the last year of your life, I guess, and what your plans moving forward, how
Mhm.
you've worked within sort of the boundaries that have been set. So just tell me sort of what music have you been listening to over the course of the last year, I suppose.
At the moment, I'm listening to a lot of jazz, to be honest with you. So artists like Alpha Mist and Coco Roco and Nabaya Garcia are fantastic. There's a great local Leeds band I've been listening to a lot lately called Eads. I don't know if you know them, but they're fantastic. A lot of artists like Celeste, um, and then Bombay Bicycle Club, bit of Gengar. Basically anything I can get my hands on. Like if you go down the New Music Friday playlist, most of it's be good.
How do you
Um,
find sort of the layout of the new Music Friday playlist? Because I do listen to it, but sometimes I feel like there's not enough that acquires to a certain taste.
yeah, I agree. There's a lot in there that I think is really good. Some of it is it does seem like almost heavily focused on pop going into rap. Quite a lot of grime on there.
Mhm.
There are a few indie tracks and a few you like one jazz track or so. So it's all right. There are some diamonds in there. Really depends what you're into. But if you're not into that sort of stuff, maybe like the hot new bands playlist or the indie list, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, for all its flaws, for how it treats artists, Spotify is great for sort of finding new music. It was great to
That's
see
a shame.
how they sort of promoted like Leeds bands like Yard Act recently. Like I know
Mhm.
they got like a big billing on Spotify. I know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, probably cost a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, no,
But yeah, I agree with you. It has a lot of flaws and there are a lot of problems. Um, Sadly, it's like a necessary evil at the moment, isn't it?
I mean that seems the case with a lot of the areas in the industry, um,
Mm.
especially with I know you'd probably be affected by this, but how PRS introduced sort of the new the royalty scheme on live streams and stuff like that, which was barbaric.
That was just without thought. Like they hadn't considered the repercussions of that, which is why they basically retracted it a week after.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, I feel like they were very trigger happy with that. I mean, people are live streaming because they literally can't put gigs on and they're not getting any money from it. And then PRS put on basically another barrier to stop people doing it. I know that's not what they meant it to be, and it was supposed to help the artists, but you can't help the artists when you're stopping the gigs happen.
No, I know, and you have to really sympathise with sort of I'd say like the middle bracket of artists, especially Joe ones whose sole income is based on music. Unlike people like myself who have part time jobs, they were releasing albums and they were doing these live streams to make some form of money back. Not they wouldn't have even like sort of touched base on how much they would have accumulated over a live tour, but for them to sort of get that stripped away, well, the idea
Yeah,
of it stripped away was really bad. But I guess that
yeah.
just shows sort of what community is now on social media, especially between musicians, and how people sort of supported each other through that, and eventually
Yeah.
learned
The,
which.
the creative industry has been very vocal over the lockdown, which has been great. Like from the early music venues campaigns to the most recent, petition about keeping VAT at 5%, which was successful as we found out yesterday. So it does seem like we're being loud enough that we're being listened to, which is something.
I mean, me personally, it's the feeling of anger when you look at sort of a lot of the steps that were taken in the last year to how they treat musicians and other people within the creative industries, especially. And it was really worrying as well, just to sort of feel like you dip your toe into sort of this deep end of a business, which is the music industry, and it just feels like you're not being listened to, or you're not being supported, or there's no
Yeah.
there's no provisions to sort of help you out. Like, I mean, sort of, you talk about sort of like the sort of the bursaries that some of these artists were given were almost an insult. You can't possibly survive on that, and I think that's how we've sort of come to this angry mob like state
Mm.
where we have to be vocal to sort of be heard, which is a real shame, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not like the things that, we're being vocal about are unreasonable either. And I think this is why we're getting them over lockdown, is because the things that we're literally asking for are they're not big demands, they're not big asks. It's just, do the bare minimum so that we can survive, is what we're saying. So,
Maybe we'd be listened to more if we were a private company asking for PPE contracts.
I don't doubt it, mate. I don't doubt it.
Um, so yeah, I know. Sorry, a bit of a. I think we've done a little bit of a segue there, but how have you sort of found like in isolation has affected your creative work now? I know you've got two sort of outlets and how you work, whether that be your creative work working with Tranqua Lite. I'm not sure if you do any other projects, and then you also do your work with Future Sound. How have you found isolation has affected your creative side?
Well, it's given me, and I know a lot of people, a lot of time to sit and think about new projects and come up with new ideas, which is the silver lining in all of this. So on the future sound side of things, I've managed to come up with new concepts for new brands and, festivals and things that we can work on during lockdown and subsequently launch when things are back. Which is, great to an extent, because we probably wouldn't have had time to sit down and really put in the effort with those, you know, as in coming up with the concepts back when things were so busy. With the band, same thing in terms of writing. When you're forced to stay in your house for such a long time, you're inevitably going to end up trying to write some songs. So that's been good. It's really halted the band though in any other aspect. So not been practicing because obviously we can't. We've not hit the studio. All the kind of stuff we wanted to have done by this point, we've just had to push, push back, which I know has been the case of a lot of bands that don't live together, which is a shame. But we're in the same situation as a lot of people, and I just have a lot of respect for the bands that have made it work and the artists that have made it work over lockdown. Because there are some artists that have, really taken off over lockdown and gotten really popular, and hats off to them because they've come up with a strategy that works for, the time we're in at the moment, which I think is commendable.
Yeah.
But yeah, personally, it's been a bit of, it's halted my creativity a little bit in some aspects, but in other aspects, it's given me time to focus on it. So 50-50 really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I share the admiration with you on sort of the artists who have somehow managed to thrive in lockdown. I mean, you look at sort of some of the technology they've been using, TikTok, for example.
Yeah.
Now, I for one, I sort of turned my nose up at TikTok really stupidly, just because when I saw it at face value, I didn't see I didn't see anything in it that could possibly
Mhm.
sort of extend my musical career or help me, but some bands have really like made it their own and done it in a really sort of niche way and a way that works in an indie way or works in an alternative way instead of
Yeah.
just like lip syncing over Jason Derulo, which is
Yeah.
which is quite
Well,
amazing.
I was a big Vine guy. I never had it, but I loved Vine. So when TikTok came, I was like, nah, this isn't this isn't Vine. I want Vine back. But I look at the artists that are big on TikTok and the Spotify streams. What will be interesting to see is whether the artists who are big on TikTok and have these big Spotify streams, whether they actually translate when things are back. So whether their gigs have fans there, or whether these are purely online listeners and they won't come to gigs. It'd be interesting to see because we don't know that yet. It's not been around long enough.
Yeah, and I guess it's the demographic which are listening to them as well. So, I mean, you don't want to assume anything, but you assume the people who are on TikTok are mainly of a younger generation.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for sure.
when things do come back to well, some form of normality, whatever that is, it is interesting to think of how that will sort of transpose across. Will these artists be able to do live tours? Will they have sort of a loyal fan base outside of the walls of TikTok?
Yeah, 100%.
And then it also makes you think about how artists, like ourselves who aren't as I don't say vocal, but aren't as active on platforms like TikTok and
Yeah.
stuff like that, how we will adapt to sort of the new normality, whether there'll be sort of a new first for live music and whether that will mean a resurgence in the live band. I don't know. It's,
Yeah, I mean, the music industry is going to continue to, develop and evolve in many different ways, and I feel like we can coexist with it. It's no problem. I personally don't have TikTok. I don't intend on getting TikTok, but I'm glad that there's a new generation of artists coming from it.
how do you work within the confines of your band? How do you collaborate with them?
A lot of Zoom meetings. Um, a lot of you throwing about ideas, a lot of making timelines that inevitably get changed because of new lockdowns. It's more just taking the punches as they come. Um, sending over demos basically and collaborating parts. Basically, what we're doing is we're coming up with a backlog of demos and a backlog of content that we can do at home, so that when things are over and we're back to normal, we can kind of come out with all of it, so that we're not short of content and we can come back in full force, as opposed to drip feeding throughout lockdown. It works for some bands, but I don't think when you're posting once every month or so, I don't think there's any point in posting at all when you can just come back and um, do it properly, full on
No,
at once.
I agree with you completely, and that's similar to sort of how the mold's been in my band. Really,
Yeah,
I mean, I was fortunate. I've got a studio, um, so I did all sort of the demos from here. But what you sort of excel in with the arrangement side of things, I almost find myself falling into the same tricks.
really.
All the time. So that's when I sort of had the fortune of being able to collaborate with my band. I mean, obviously, when we were allowed to, I got to work with them, and we've recorded an album's worth. And with a similar outlook with you, not releasing music sort of a single every three months or 3 to 4 months now, with no content to follow. Sort of when we can come back in full force with music and actual content, professionally recorded content to actually support a decent social media campaign, because it's so easy just to sort of be a drop in the ocean on social media, and
Yeah,
it's so hard to navigate, I find.
you're right. You're absolutely right. But if bands can make it work, fair play to them. It's
Mhm.
just tricky.
Yeah, I think sort of the modern day musician, regardless if you like it or not, if you are independent, there's got to be that side of you who has to sort of be accustomed to using social media as sort of utensil to sort of get your music heard. And
Definitely.
I think there's again there's sort of like there's a shame in sort of being sort of really open and flaunting your music on the internet. Like almost makes it not cool. But you look at the amount of artists who absolutely thrive by doing that, and who do it
Yeah.
with no shame, and almost find their own edge to it, which is its own sort of USP, and will help them get to that next level in their career.
Yeah. 100%.
Do you feel comfortable sort of on social media?
Yeah. I'm not huge. I'm not hugely active. I do quite enjoy Instagram stories actually. I'm not massively active. Like I do one post every 5 months, for example. Personally, on my own social media, I like doing social media for brands and for bands. So I like doing stuff on Future Sound and with the band. I do a lot less on my own. Um, I just don't know. Just got no desire to do it really. And I'm not really one for sharing every aspect of my life with people. I know some people like that, and no problem. But it's not really something I'm bothered about.
Yeah, I think I sort of had to draw a line in the sand between my own personal accounts and music accounts, just because, like yourself, I don't feel comfortable sharing that side of my
Mm.
personal life online. But
I
I
feel like
would
the more you share with the other profiles, the less you share with your personal one.
exactly. But I also understand that sharing every aspect of my musical life is a necessary evil in sort of a modern
Yeah,
a modern archetype like of the music industry, which
definitely.
which I'm still getting accustomed to. I get lazy on it. I really do. I'd rather sit and write a song or sit and play my instrument or record than I would sort of making content. And that's just the type of I guess that's the type of creative that I am.
I mean, that would mean you're in the right place for when like the bigger bands have people that do the social media for them, and they have managers, booking agents, so that you could just sit and focus on writing the music, which in an ideal world is what you'd want.
I know, but unfortunately, I think until until we're at a point where you can rely on that, it's just got, as I said, accept the necessary evil, which is trying to be the best on social media and portray the sort of the best image of your band via that, and share sort of the intimate moments in the studio with the public eye, which isn't exactly great. When I'm in the studio and I'm working, I hate having to get my phone out and having to record sort of little snippets, and I feel like I'm sort of
Yeah,
doing the same thing over and over again, but at the same time, I understand that it's content at the end of the day, and
yeah, 100%.
I'll move on to maybe just talk about sort of like the lead scene in general. So I've just got a few questions.
Mhm.
Um, so who would you say is your favorite local band to support as in go to their gigs, listen to their music, shout from the rooftops that
Ooh.
you're a fan of theirs? I know it's probably going to be really difficult to think of one. So talk me through a few.
Yeah, I'll have to do a few. Could not pick one. I love the lead scene; it's fantastic. There is a band called Sea Legs who are fantastic. I can see them doing a really nice comeback after lockdown. And then, obviously, I mentioned Eads earlier, who are great. They've just signed to High Store Hit label. They're doing really well for themselves. Band called Talk Boy, who are really great, also doing really well for themselves. Yard Act, like you mentioned earlier, obviously they're doing really well, but they are fantastic. The golden age of TV are wonderful. There's so many bands in Leeds that are just fantastic, but they're just to name a few that I listen to. I think we've got a very talented scene in Leeds, and we're very lucky because there's some places I've been and they have very minimal local music scene, and it's quite sad to see coming from Leeds where
Mhm.
we've got so many talented bands.
No, I mean you've named some really good acts there. I'm just sort of thinking, how do you think sort of the Leeds music scene is going to develop across the next year or in the future? Because just to me right now, I mean, obviously I've grown up in Leeds, and I don't think I have the knowledge of the local scene nearly as much as you do. Um, but I just see the scene just at a real sort of tipping point at the minute. I feel like there's loads of great acts which are coming through, and I almost feel like it feels like we're in sort of the best musical place that we have been in a long time, which is weird because you'd almost think that it'd be the opposite of that because of obviously lockdown. But I feel almost closer to my local scene through being away from it for so long.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But the lead seed, I feel like we're going to lose a lot of bands because of this. A lot of people moving back home and staying there. There's a lot of people, that have come to Leeds for a lot of people that are probably just going to call it a day. But the ones that come out the other end are going to be stronger for it. And the lead scene will continue to grow and grow. I mean, it does. We have up and down phases in the scene, in that we have like periods of inactivity and periods of not many new bands making it. And in the past few years, we've been riding on the coattails of Marsicans for so long.
Mhm.
So we've not had like any new bands come up and kind of do really well. So we're due it now, and I feel like with smaller bands like Yard Act and Talkboy and some other locals that are gathering national attention, we're well on our way to having some new names come out of Leeds, that are going to do quite well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we're in a high point now, and we're going to come out at another high point.
Another question for you is, and there's sort of two strands to this, so answer it in two separate parts if you want. So, what is your favourite Leeds music venue to visit and or play?
Ooh, again, this is the impossible question because being a rep and being in a band, I do all of them. So yeah, my favorite since I have been the age of 15 has been the Wardrobe. It's simply because it's one of the first venues I went to, and one of the actually no, we're really good for age restrictions in Leeds, but like it was one of the few accommodating venues for young people. And I used to go there when I was younger. I used to do rock school. I used to go to gigs there, and I've grown up with it, and it's just fantastic. So my favorite would be the Wardrobe. That's not to say that I don't love all of them. Like I rep and play all of them, and there's not one that I don't enjoy.
Mhm.
From High Park Book Club, Oporto, Brudenell, Key Club, Hedgerow, Belgrave, they're all fantastic. But yeah, it's my spiritual home is the Wardrobe.
I mean, that's one thing that Leeds isn't short of is musical venues. I mean, I know some of the big names have gone, which is a shame. And there's always sort of the rumor that they are going to make a comeback, but it never quite gets to a stage where they're out lighting the signs up again. What music are you going to sort of go see when lockdown ends, and where in Leeds?
All of it, all the music. Like I just, I look back and I know I went to a lot of gigs. I was repping most of them, but in my spare time, I went to a lot of gigs too. But I look back now and I didn't go to enough. I need to be doing more. It's because after a day of repping, you're absolutely shattered. And then the next day you kind of want a bit of respite, but screw that. We'll just go to the mall when things get back. I'm excited to be working some festivals again, and just like that moment when doors open, people start coming in. Just excited for that again. So I will be at everything I can.
No, good. No, no, I imagine. I mean, that's the luxury of your job is you also get to go to see some really great established acts, but I imagine you probably discover new music through seeing support acts and, putting on new music that you haven't, maybe just, new music from a chain of emails and you're there repping on the off chance and you get to discover a band that you really love.
Bands that are the tour support are usually a good indicator of bands that are going to do well eventually. So, like, if you see a band that's on tour with a band that you like, pay attention to the support band, because the likelihood is in a few years or a few cycles, they might be at the same level, because that's just how it works.
Yeah, and sort of just moving on to something that's very similar to what you said then is I was just going to talk to you. What is your pet peeve when you're at a live gig? And mine is people who talk through the support band or people who rock up 5 minutes before the main act's on. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
gauge sort of what is your pet peeve at a live show?
Yeah, that really missed me off. Um, when, especially when it's a really like soulful or like you know calming atmospheric gig, and people are here for the headliner. But obviously, the support act is also going to be quite quiet, and people are just chatting away. And it's like, look, you've had your time. There's like an hour before they came on before doors. It's like, come on, just watch the act. I find that so rude. Totally agree with you. Again, though, I totally agree with you. People who they say, "Hey, what time's the headliner on in the event?" And they say, "Where are the set times?" And it's like, here is the door time. Here's the curfew time, so you can book sort of how you get home. Come for doors. Watch everyone.
Mhm.
Because from a rep's perspective, when I say we're green for doors, and the doors open, and a couple people trickle in, and the room is pretty empty by the support act. Sad, like this would have been a much better situation if like people had just turned up and watched the support act, because the support acts are always good. Like you're not gonna book support acts if they're not good.
No, no, exactly. And you got to think about sort of the missed opportunities that so many people will have missed seeing like the next big thing over the years, just because they weren't a household name yet.
Yeah,
I mean, and
exactly,
that's
exactly,
that's on them.
100%.
Okay, so this is going to be probably a difficult one again, but it's just a question that I'm going to ask everyone. So, who would you say is Leeds' biggest music mogul? If you had to pick one person in particular, which sort of defines the Leeds music scene, whether it's how they support it or just because they've been there so long and everyone admires them.
Oh my days. Um, uh, there is one guy that's at every gig I ever go to, and that's the lovely Paul Cartwright.
No,
If you're aware of him, he's you'll have seen him. He's the guy, the tall, slightly balding guy with a pint in his hand that's at the front of every single gig. And whenever gigs do, whenever gig doors open, he always comes in first, stands at the front and watches him. So I'd say he is very much the lifeblood of the local scene in terms of audience.
that was great.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
he's not getting paid for that. He's just doing it for the pure love of
no,
music. I
I
can't.
don't know whether he has a job or what he does. I don't know how he's got so much time, but he's at all of the gigs, and that's great.
Yeah, nice, nice. All right, so is that your final answer, Paul Cartwright?
You can poke out right.
It's going to be interesting to sort of see who people pick across the span. I mean, we've got so on these interviews, we've got yourself, we've got Emily Pilbeam,
Nice,
we've got Whiskers from Music Leeds,
nice. Yeah,
got a chap called Glyn from Chalk Pit Records, if you've heard of them.
yeah, I know Glenn well.
We've got a producer I work with called Oliver Secunda,
Nice.
and I think that's it. So I think I've sort of got a scope of sort of quite a few people within the scene who
Very
know.
nice selection, yeah. Who will know Paul Cartwright, definitely.
Yeah, I know, but this is a good. I mean, you're the first one, so I mean, it's about. I had no idea who Paul Cartwright was, but I think he'll be one of them. Now you've pointed him
You'd
out.
know the face, you really would know the face. You'd be like, "Oh, that guy." He's probably been at one of your gigs.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great. Well, do you know what, Toby? I think I've covered all my questions. Is there anything you can think of to talk about quickly that you're interested just to talk to me about what you've got coming up with future sounds or any opportunities that are coming up for anyone who's listening?
Yeah, I mean, just there's some exciting opportunities that will be coming up after when things get back to normal. Keep an eye out for live at Leeds announcements. Obviously, been a great response to that. And obviously, if, people that are in local bands, the applications will open at some point. As always, it's really important to highlight local bands
Yeah,
at festivals like this, which we will do and always do. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and more to come.
nice one, Toby. Well, thanks for giving up your time this morning, and I really appreciate you talking to me, and I mean, giving me loads of knowledge on the music scene.
No worries, mate.
Obviously, it's been nice to put a face to the name because
And yeah,
corresponded over emails, mainly being rebookings and cancellations, and
and again, and again, and
whatever
again.
else. But, oh well, that's just the time we were living in. So yeah, be nice to hopefully see you at a gig in future in the flesh.
Yeah, 100%. I'll see you very soon for sure.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.